What's up, everyone? We are back. You guys enjoyed us so much last week. We figured we'd do another one. Why not? We're in the second round of the playoffs, and several of our teams we didn't get to discuss anyways last week because of forfeits. So we'll get to talk a little bit about Raceland and East Carter this week. They have games. We're excited, we think. Hopefully,
We hope.
Frankfort, Berea waited until we were getting ready to put out the show and then decided they were going to forfeit. So we looked like idiots last week. But we appreciate you guys not making fun of us. We appreciate everyone who watched. We had about 500 views, so that was pretty cool. Thank you guys. Ben Spicer here on round two, week two of the playoffs, joined by Spencer Hutchison and James Collier. I'm not going to try to point at you guys this week because I know I'm going to get it wrong.
Just go like that, man.
You can see the names are on the screen. You guys know what we're talking about here.
And just for future references, this is a tape. This is not a live show.
Yeah, so no live show.
Anything changes from now until then, we're aware of it. We just don't know of it yet.
Yeah, exactly. So
James
we recorded
is good,
this
but he
Monday
can't
night.
read the future.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm just good for getting on billboards, okay?
Hey, well, whatever gets us some publicity, we like it.
You
see the results there at the bottom of your screen from week one, and as we expected, there were a lot of blowouts. I don't think there were any really big surprises. We did predict Boyd County over Mason County to kind of play off your all's comments there a moment ago, but looking at some results, we got to give a shout out to Fairview, man. Shout out to the Eagles. Shout out to everyone in Westwood. 13 kids. They go down to Sayre. Sayre, one of the top teams in 1A. They don't back down. They don't forfeit. They show up ready to play. They fell 48-8, but shout out to Fairview, man. A lot of heart, a lot of toughness from the coaching staff, from the kids to get out there with low numbers and compete in the playoffs. That's what it's all about. I really just wanted to show them some love when we get started here.
I got to see Fairview in person too. So I watched them play Raceland at Raceland, and it was a lopsided win by the Rams. But the one thing I was really impressed with was the fact of the Fairview guys. They never quit. They kept playing. They played hard. They were within their means of trying to do something. And from that point, I was kind of like, you know what? I know that, they're battling with numbers and that's an issue in itself, but still, I was really excited to see Fairview say, you know what, all these teams that are folding and saying we're not going to play the first round of the playoffs. We've had a tough season. We've got low numbers. We're going to take what we've got and we're going to roll. And I think that's kind of Fairview style. So kudos to them and their staff and those 13 kids that went down there, laid it on the line and called it a year. But you got to give, the effort has to be A+ for at least showing up and giving it an opportunity.
Well, not only that, but they got 2 wins this year. It wasn't like it was an unsuccessful season.
With a freshman quarterback.
Right, and they had one real big win. So, and you talk about the freshman quarterback, he's a stud. So,
yes, he is.
Like you said, James, they could have easily just said, you know what, it's not worth it. Sayre's not right down the road. They could have just, folded it in and said, hey, we're done, but they didn't do it. And I think you got to give credit where credit's due and salute to Brent Wilcoxon and then Fairview Eagles and his staff.
And I guarantee you that Chad Pennington down there at Sayre, he feels the pain that they're going, because that Sayre team was not a good team when he took over.
No.
And that was, that has gone through a real rebuilding process. And obviously he had his son that was there last year who graduated. Now he's got, I think, his younger son that's in there now with Luke Pennington. But, this Sayre team has really taken its lumps in the previous years and now has kind of pushed itself into one of the top teams in Class Single A football. So I'm certain that they were merciful in that game as well. When you look at it, again, you're not trying to throw salt in a wound, not trying to run anything up. Go out there, play your game, and let it play out as it is.
Right.
I got the chance to go to Ashland and Harrison County. I'm sure you guys have seen the controversial call, a series of controversial calls, really, but the one that really garnered the headlines. I saw it in USA Today, by the way. That was kind of crazy.
It grabbed the media attention nationwide, and one thing that I will say this, and I'm going to take the sides of the official just for a second, the rare side of it.
First time ever.
I don't think there was any malicious intent involved. These guys were from out of the area. They were from the 15th region. Not only that, but I think that they mistakenly took the 5-yard line for the goal line. And I know that you make it seem like, oh, well, people might think, oh, well, how in the world do you do that? It's kind of like Murphy's Law. If it can, it will. And I just, it doesn't help Ashland's reputation that it happened there. It could have happened anywhere else in the tri-state, and people would have been like, "Oh, that's a terrible call." But where it happened at, people were like, "Well, that's just Putnam. Oh, they've been doing that for years." Let's not walk. That's what people were thinking. Of course, there's a couple of people on social media quick to defend them, which and even Chad Tackett went to him and said, "Hey, it wasn't a touchdown. This was not a touchdown," and that was published in the Daily Independent. So it didn't dictate the game, but it's something that what if it would have? What if that call would have went against Raceland down there and they were playing Pikeville? What if they give Pikeville a touchdown and they got stopped at the 5?
Well, and I'm going to play devil's advocate here against you on this, Spencer, because here's the thing that I had a problem with is, you could have made this mistake, but here's my biggest thing, and I talked to several people about this. It's not like you couldn't distinguish between the 5-yard to the goal line and then the end zone. The end zone's painted maroon, for God's sake. Okay. But even for that, if you messed up the call, how do you not get together and fix it? Okay. Right. People said that, the penalty that came out, they were going to put the ball at the 1-yard line regardless. That's fine. You could have a botched snap. You could have, something that goes crazy. And this, they were leading at the time. Harrison County was leading at the time when this happened. Right. And, that's a momentum swinging event there. So, does it inevitably turn into a national touchdown? Yeah, 99.9% of the time it probably does. But at the same time, if I'm Harrison County, I'm coming in and playing against one of the top teams in Class 4A. I don't need the officials handing them a free 6, okay? Right. Especially when the guy's 4 yards away.
If I'm Bourbon County's coach, I'm either I'm getting kicked off the field first off, or I'm loading my team up in my bus and we're leaving. Listen, we saw a call not as bad as that, or I guess you would call it a missed call, over at Ironton when they were playing Russell, when the ball rolled down Carrico's leg. I don't know if you guys remember that.
I do.
Yeah, it was like a 6-3 game. I mean, it was a real defensive game, and Carrico caught a long pass down the middle of the field, and he never had it. Kind of got stuck in between multiple players and rolled down his leg, went out the back of the end zone. They called a touchdown. That's the only thing that saved Ironton that day.
Yeah.
And, I got kicked out of Ironton for that one. So, it was just one of those things, it was a missed call. I mean, no, I'm sure that they've heard enough texts and calls, and they get on social media like we do, and we can't, they're getting pounded right now. And truthfully, if you've got 4 or 5 guys on the field, you should be able to correct it, and they just didn't. So it is one of those things, but at least it wasn't a impactful call. Maybe at the time, but what if the score ends up being 12-6,
Yeah.
Then it changes the narrative a little bit.
And you look at that final score, it's 56-14. Ashland wins. Harrison County gets a touchdown late, but Harrison County scored on the first play of the game. They go for their onside kick. They get it. So the momentum was all in the Thoroughbreds' hands. I just wanted to.
Harrison County quarterback is a stud, by the way. I just want to throw
that. Yeah, Caden Custard.
Ashland's really good. Absolutely. Ashland's really good, and we're going to talk about their game here in a minute. But Harrison County's quarterback, man, he could play anywhere.
Custard is a dude. Yeah. He is a dude.
Yeah. Just for I know that we're live, and this is actually this is a Monday night. Ben, Louisville has tied it with University of Maryland, Baltimore County.
Let's go.
75 right now with 6:19 left. Oh, never mind. Baltimore County took the lead back.
Well, I mean, Louisville has never won a game as a 16 seed, so
Kenny Payne's next win might come when he's an assistant for John Calipari.
I don't even know where Louisville ranks among the
There's no sense in them being that
high school teams in Kentucky. Like Warren East could probably beat Louisville.
Yeah, that team's in shambles.
Rough, guys. I know I'm not going to get any empathy from you all, so we'll.
You kind of do though, man, because you're a Detroit Lions fan. I know the pain because I'm a Browns fan, and then you like Louisville. That was kind of like your anchor, Louisville.
I know.
If all else fails, Louisville basketball's good, and now you ain't got that. So
Ben, at least you've got Louisville football though. They're really solid.
Yeah,
let's go. Yeah. Although they lost to 2-6, 2-7 Pitt somehow.
Yeah, but hey, that was a long time ago. The committee can't even remember what it did last week, so that game's outside of mind.
But the thing is, Louisville will come out and look great against Virginia. They'll boat race Miami, and then they'll somehow lose to Kentucky at the end.
I was just going to say they'll probably still lose.
Let's be real here.
That's coming.
It's absolutely going to happen. Speaking of Ashland, we were talking about Ashland. A lot of weapons on that team. Do you think that they match up with Covington Catholic? I know CovCath is one of the favorites to win 4A, but hear me out here. I feel like Ashland has enough versatility, enough weapons maybe. Obviously, it's going to come down to the trenches and the line of scrimmage, but you think weapon-wise maybe Ashland can match up on the road at Covington?
I think they do. I think this is a competitive game. Ashland's got enough up front and on the edges to where they can match up a little. Do I think they'll win? Probably not. But do I think that they can stay competitive for a while? Yes. The most important time of this game won't be the first 5 minutes. It'll be the second 5 minutes in the second half. If Covington Catholic, let's say Ashland goes down and they're down a couple of touchdowns or 7 at the half. And they, you let Cov Cath come out in the second half, and within 3 minutes you're down 2 scores. I think that's what will end up doing it. But I think Ashland, this is not going to. I'll say this: I would be surprised if this is a running clock. I would. I'd be surprised. I think.
Yeah, I don't think it's a running clock by any means. I think this is a game that the way that the tempo is going to play out. This is 2 teams that's going to run the football. Last week, Cov Cath win against Greenup County. 26 rushing attempts for 237 yards in the lopsided win. But you look at what Ashland has in the backfield. Braxton Jennings, Tay Thomas, Cam Davis, those 3 dudes out of the backfield have been stellar. And again, when you get into November, which team can run the football, which team can stop the run? Ashland has been really big up front. They're really good in their linebacking core, and they're going to have to make their reads. They're going to have to get to those guys quickly and get them on the ground. But because of, I think we look at both of these teams that are probably going to look at trying to establish the run, possessions are going to be at a premium. And these are both teams that can sustain long drives, which is probably going to limit you to 3, 4, maybe at the most touches per half. So I'm with Spencer. I don't think this is a running clock, but I think Cov Cath, especially at home, gets things done with the 4th.
Yeah, I go Cov Cath also, and I don't think this is. I think this is a competitive game for a long time, and it may be a competitive game the whole time. Ashland, it seems like anytime they need to put down the accelerator, they will. And this is not an offense that Johnson Central runs. I think that's kind of the kryptonite for Ashland is they'll really struggle against teams that'll line up and just run wishbone or wing tee or whatever. But this is not a team that's going to want to do that. Yes, they'll run the ball quite a bit, but they run a lot of plays out of shotgun. They do a lot of they like to spread the field and use their athletes, kind of like what Ashland does. I think that matches up with them really, really well. I think for an Ashland win, first off, you got to win the turnover differential. They're going to have to get a couple fumbles deep in Cov Cath territory. They're going to have to maybe even get an onside kick. I think that you're going to have to make Cov Cath go on long drives. So no big plays of 75, 60-yard plays to where you're kind of in a Big 12 shootout, so to speak. But I think that could be a competitive game, something that's really interesting. We'll have to watch this Friday night.
You look at Cov Cath too. They have 2 stellar running backs. Well, a running back and a quarterback who's also a dual threat guy. But then your quarterback in Evan Pitzer, 26 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's thrown for over 2,000 yards. On the backside of that, on Ashland's side, you've got LeBryant Strader, who's thrown 1 interception all season long.
Right.
And he has made probably the biggest progression of anybody in the state of Kentucky from sophomore to junior season.
Right.
He didn't throw his first interception until the last game of the regular season against Simon Kent. I really like his football IQ is off the charts. Chad Tackett has nothing but amazing things to say about him of how much he has really dictated what that offense can and cannot do. And he just makes the right reads. He was 11 of 13 last week in the playoffs. And one pass that he made, it was a kind of a jump ball that he threw into double coverage. It got knocked down. After that, he was locked in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I said this last year. When it's all said and done, he'll be the all-time leading passer for Ashland. So I think and I think he does it by several yards. I don't know where he stands, but what is he, just a sophomore? So he's still got a junior and a senior season after this one. So look out.
Crazy. Some other playoff games in the area this week. Of course, we'll talk about Raceland and East Carter in some detail here. Boyd County goes to Johnson Central. Russell is at Lexington Catholic. Lawrence County at Rockcastle County. Paintsville at Middlesboro. Williamsburg at Pikeville. Any games that kind of stand out where the underdogs maybe could come out on top? Do you see maybe Boyd County or Russell being able to win against Johnson Central or Lexington Catholic, respectively? We'll start with you, Spencer.
Probably not. I'll just be very blunt with you. First off, I'll be honest with you. Lexington Catholic is on a completely different level than the majority of teams in 3A. If Russell gets this game at home, I think they keep it close for a while. At Lexington Catholic, I do not. I think Lexington Catholic rolls them, and I think they probably put a running clock on them. And people are going to get mad at me for saying that, but they won't remember it when it happens. So Lexington Catholic's different. I mean, they're just very, very, very good. Boyd County's already made a trip to Johnson Central this year, and that didn't go very well for them. So, I don't know, man. If you're asking me who do I think has the better chance of winning, it's Boyd County. I think Boyd County has a better chance because they kind of know what to expect down there. But it seems like anytime Johnson Central gets in the playoffs, they turn into a different animal. So, you gave us two tough ones there, Ben. Two tough ones.
There wasn't a lot of.
I don't see it. I don't really.
Johnson Central has not lost to Boyd since 2002. So it's been a long time since Boyd County's had a win over the Golden Eagles. On the other side of that, going back to what Spencer was saying with Lexington Catholic, they're just a different animal. You look at their this winning streak they're on. They've won 5 consecutive, 48-0, 41-0, 72-0, 21-20, and then 51-0 last week over West Carter. They can score quickly. They can do it in a multitude of ways, and this is a game that I think Russell, they want to try to establish long drives, and the clock is their friend. Okay. But you have to be able to convert on third down. You can't put yourself behind the sticks on first down. You can't get behind the sticks on second down and expect to be able to get something on this Lexington Catholic team, because you give them opportunities, and next thing you know, you're going to be down 3 scores in the first quarter.
You look at those losses, like all those losses, the 4 losses, 4 losses are kind of misleading because you lose to Highlands, Corbin, Lexington Christian, Boyle County. I mean, those are all four teams
that all could possibly win a state championship.
So they've challenged themselves for sure. That was a difficult question, guys. Sorry about that.
That was a tough one, but it does tell you how good Boyle County is, though, don't it?
Yeah.
By looking at that schedule. So
4A, man, you were talking about it last week, Spencer. Like 4A, there's legitimately 5 or 6 teams that you could make a case for.
Well, Boyle County, I think, is your favorite, but Corbin's really good. The problem, and I'm going to set James Collier off right here. This is the problem right here. You're not going to see those 2 teams play at state. These 2 teams are going to play probably at Boyle County or Corbin. Whichever's higher in the RPI, I'm not sure right offhand. Which is really a shame. And I shouldn't say a shame. Covington Catholic may be the best team. We don't know yet. But either way, the matchup should be one of those 3 teams against each other, or 2 of those 3 teams against each other at Kroger Field. And you're not going to see it. You're going to have a 4A game that's going to be 50-0 is what's going to end up happening. You're going to have a Cov Cath playing freaking Paducah Tillman, and they're going to beat them to death. It's not, no offense to Paducah Tillman. They are not on that level.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you can't tell me that a team that goes out and drops 70, 56, and 70 in their last 4 games, they're not on a different level. Now, are they on the level of Corbin, Boyle, and Covcath? I don't know. But you got to have some dudes to go out and drop that many points in succession. I left out a 63-20 win there. Listen, now here's one that really jumped out to me, okay? And again, I know you're going down classification to do this, but they beat Mayfield 35-28, okay? Mayfield, I understand, they're a 2A school, but they are a freaking powerhouse.
They are. Yeah. They are.
So I think that's a signature win for them right there that you look at. I mean, you've got 5 teams right now in that are 11-0 in 4A. And again, like what you were talking about right now, Corbin and Boyle County, they're 3rd and 4th in the RPI. It's Covcath, Franklin County, Boyle, Corbin, Paducah, Tillman. Ashland's 5th. So, I mean, you're kind of, it's a double-edged sword, if you will, once we get through this next round and we start reshuffling things with East and West and all the craziness that is the RPI that we'll talk about a little bit later on. But it's certainly something to think about. I think 4A is probably going to be your best game of the entire state tournament when we get things rolling that first week in December.
I think it's a 3-team breakaway, James. I think it's Covcath. I think it's Boyle. I think it's Corbin. No offense to Franklin County. No offense to Paducah Tillman. Paducah Tillman was in 3A, and they couldn't even win it last year. You think they're going to go and win 4A? I don't think so. It's just a different level of football. And, they may have got some kids in, you just never know. But I just don't see it. James, I watched your film with Highlands and Covington Catholic, and we know how good Highlands is. We know how good Raceland is. And Highlands, what they did to Raceland, that Cub Catholic team beat them. How is that?
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. Does that tell you how good they are?
Yeah. So, Highlands is a different level of football, and Cub Catholic, that's their only loss this year.
Yeah.
I watched a little bit of the game with Cub Catholic and Greenup last week, and the way they approach the game.
Waves.
It's just waves and bounds past a lot of teams. And it's even whenever Greenup made a little run right there early on them,
right?
And they never even falter. They just like, okay, let's go.
And shout out to Tyson.
They grab another gear and go.
Shout out to Tyson Samuels. He ran over the UK commit for the first touchdown.
Nice. He's ran over a lot of kids this year.
So that makes me feel a little bit better because that's the reason why East Carter lost to Green, because we couldn't tackle him. Well, Division I players can't even tackle him. So, if it's just one of those things, Now, Green did lose really big, but that's something you put on the highlight tape.
Yeah, for sure.
And
Tyson, put that as your first clip. That's your first clip.
Definitely
Tyson.
your first clip there.
Please.
And while we're talking about Greenup, we got to give Travis Jones some love. His first year as a head coach, and we had a team that had a lot of new faces, not a lot of varsity experience because he graduated a ton, and when Zach Moore left in his last season. And, Travis has kind of been the guy that's been there in the waiting. And they took some bumps there early on, at tough loss at Coal Grove. But then they got that signature win against Russell, which was big for him because he played at Russell. So, to get your first win over your alma mater and then take your team into the postseason, your first year as a head coach, again, not a year to be a good 4A team, let alone a team that's kind of just in its rebuilding stages with a new head coach. But I think the world of Travis. I've worked with him, coached alongside of him. My son played there at Greenup. He's a very good head coach, and I'm really excited to see what he can continue to do down the road.
Yeah, and you look at their schedule there. You got Coal Grove and Portsmouth. Okay, you're not going to have those games on the schedule anymore. Look for Raceland to come in on that schedule in a couple.
Not going to happen.
I think it might. Wait and see.
Not going to happen.
But why wouldn't it happen? Why wouldn't it happen? What's the worst that happen? You lose? Oh. Let's cancel the season. Not going to
happen.
Let's cancel the season.
Not going to happen.
Oh, man.
Me personally, I would play Raceland every single year. Because not only does it I don't care what class you're in. People can say, the RPI. The teams that are saying that are never going to be in the third round anyways, most times. So let's just call it what it is. And I've heard, and you know who you are. You're going to watch us. You know who you are saying that, it hurts our RPI. You're worried about the RPI? If you get a winning record, that'd be a good year for you guys. Are you kidding me? No. So I would play Raceland every year. It's a good experience, a good physical football team. You get to go down to Raceland. You get to play at home against a team that you probably will face a similar talent level in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Let's say, I would play him. For sure.
Spencer, you're using way too much common sense in this whole theory of play race. It ain't happening. Okay. Right. As Mike Dickey used to say, next question.
Yeah.
Hey, well, that's a perfect segue. I appreciate you teeing it up for me because we can talk about Raceland now. They've got a game this week. They will take on Frankfort. So forfeit last week against Berea. We found out late in the week. So now taking on Frankfort in the second round is the Raceland Rams, last year's 1A runner-up. Early thoughts on that? I'll start with you, James. You'll be calling the game, and you can actually catch that game here on Kool TV. So while you're here, hit that like button, and then also subscribe to the channel. Turn the bell on so you get notified when we're live at Ram Stadium on Friday night. James, what's your early thoughts on the Frankfort matchup for the Rams?
Well, I think this was a concern early in the season because Frankfort took a forfeit loss. They forfeited to Rockcastle County in the third game of the season. And, this being the new sister district of Raceland this year, there was concerns that this team may be the fourth seed, and Raceland may not even have a game coming out of this coming into the postseason. They did play the following week. They played against Iroquois, which is a team out of Louisville. I think they're a 5A school that probably couldn't even drag the bottom in 1A. But, they got a win. They've got a few wins here. They beat a Nicholas County team last week that lost probably one of their best players the night against Raceland with, I believe it was an ACL injury. So, they got the win on over Nicholas County last week. But this is a game that Raceland wants to take care of business, put things away. It's going to be senior night for the Rams. You got a lot of emotions there. But the other side of it, too, this is the Rams' last home game. They're not at home anyway, form or fashion the rest of the way. This one's it. So I think you look at it on paper, this one should be heads and shoulders Rams easily in this one. But you've also got to think, you take a kind of an extra bye week, you got to have those concerns. Did a little bit of rust come on? You're still out of the gates of playing that LCA team, then you kind of got roughed up in that a little bit. So, kind of a balancing act here for the Rams to see what they can do. But I think that you want to see, you look at your next two opponents that you could face in Sayre or Paris, which I think is going to be a war, by the way. But on the backside, I think you want to see what you want to be able to establish going forward in that third round when you have to go on the road. And that's what you focus on in this game. You put this one away early, and you get yourself ready for the next round.
Real quick, Spencer, I'll let you jump in real quick. I just got to talk about this. The 6-2 game. Look at the 6-2 game, guys. I wish I would have been there for that. That was a
double down the line to open the ball game, by the way.
Yeah. I don't think this game's ever close. I think Raceland's kind of frustrated. They're healthy now. They got a week off, which makes an extra week of practice. They got to kind of just take a step back and relax, take a big deep breath, and say, okay, we're going to make a playoff run now. I think this game is easily going to get out of hand. I think that Raceland run clocks it. I think that you're going to see a lot of the younger Rams get into the game, and you might not think that that's a big deal, but the game, the atmosphere is different on Friday nights when like Coach Tim Champlin says sometimes, the popcorn's out, the lights are on. It's just different to get, and you get that experience. So I think Raceland cruises. I don't think they're looking ahead. I think that this is an easy Rams win at home.
That schedule that Raceland played, the district was really struggling this year. Paris was the second best team, of course, and Raceland could see Paris again. But challenging themselves throughout the season, Ashland, Pikeville, Highlands, Newport Central Catholic, Lexington Christian at the end of the season. What do you think that does for Raceland now come playoff time, having played against teams that are not only in higher classifications, but again, can make a deep playoff run? I mean, we could see Highlands in the state championship. We could see Lexington Christian in the state championship. What do you think that does for Raceland, having played those type of teams now that the postseason's here?
Well, I know one of the things that Mike Sammons always talks about is the way that they set up their schedule. They like that challenge in that last game of the regular season, and that LCA was a perfect location for that. He said, obviously, we're not going to see a guy that they're going to face anywhere through the postseason like the Hensley kid. That dude was on another level. They had some D1 guys all across that front line. The Boley kid, he was a quarterback. I'll just leave it at that. I would have, if I had to handpick which one I was saying that was going D1 on that field that night, it was not the quarterback. But
I agree.
And on the other side of it, looking back at the Highlands loss, the Rams got shut out in that one, and it wasn't even close. They got bullied, they got manhandled by Highlands. But then watching every single game after that, you could watch it seeming like the game was in slow motion for the Rams. And that was the kind of the learning lesson of, look, we took one on the chin on our home field, but look what we've done since then. And that's kind of what the Rams were looking at. And I think if you look at, obviously, when you're comparing apples with this, everybody's thinking Raceland and Pikeville in this. Well, they have a common opponent here in LCA. And if you look at the outcome of the game, they were pretty comparable. I think it was 34-14 whenever Pikeville played LCA, and the Rams lost it. I think it was 48-21. So, there was a lot of comparisons that you could see in this one, but I think that having that style of competition, that it forces you to take your game to the next level. It also exploits you of what you need to work on to get better, and that's how you get better. You play teams that are better than you, that can show you where those weaknesses are.
I think it's a classic case of iron sharpens iron. We knew Raceland was a good team coming into the year. We knew what was on the schedule. Everybody said, man, if Raceland just goes 500, it's been a good year. Well, they didn't accept that. We're not taking the field to lose these games. We're going to try and win them. And this is a different approach from the Rams teams in the past, not taking anything away from them. They never played a schedule like this one. And I think it was repeated losses to Pikeville or Beechwood that it's kind of the reason why the schedule got made like this. Not only that's a factor, but nobody would play them. So there's, it's one of those things that wasn't meant to happen that way. Nobody would play me, so I got to go play these 5, 4, and 5, 6A teams. Is that a product of a state championship winning team? We're going to find out in just a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and you look at it with the way that the schedule lined up. I mean, they were the Road Warriors the first month of the regular season. 3 games on the road, 2 long road trips down US 23 before they come back home for a couple. Then they had to go to Hazard. Then they had to go to Nicholas County. So, I mean, the Yellow Dog at Ramland has been on the road a lot this year, okay? Yeah. It's going to go on the road a lot moving forward. But it's something to think about as like you were talking about, iron sharps an iron. Or, I think the motto they go into this one, though, is their motto. They say, keep pounding. 48 minutes, keep pounding. And that's something that I've watched in that after those run of games from the Highlands loss, you could watch those guys just leaning on teams for 48 minutes and just wearing their opposition down. And you get it, especially in that game with Paris. It was a 14-7 game. There in the third quarter, Paris comes out of the locker room. They punch one in, get an onside kick, and then the Rams just reach in and grab a hold of that game. And I think that because of that game coming on the backside of that Highlands contest, the Rams were able to do that, and that's what they're going to be facing again when they either have to play Sayre or Paris in that third round.
Early RPI I'm not even going to try to say that. You know what I'm trying to say. Yeah, there we go. Who do you think the Rams could potentially see? I'm not trying to look ahead or anything, but if they win this Friday, who do you think they see in round number 2?
James knows all about that.
Oh, I've been charting the RPI a lot. We'll talk about that in a little bit. I think that if you look at it side by side, I think Paris has a little bit of a slight advantage over Sayre. I think that their athletes they have are a little bit better. I've seen Paris play in person, and I've kind of watched them evolve from last year to this year and what they did last week. But, it's one of the things, though, that you can't get ahead of yourself. And the fact of it is you're going to be on the road. But you look at last week, a big win over Eminence. Julius Gregory, he's kind of coming into his own. Threw 4 touchdowns last week. The Holman kid in the backfield, he's a very slippery kid. He is always moving forward when he grabs the football. And in the Elijah Webb kid, his biggest problem is that he's got to learn how to control his emotions. He got them in so many times that he got in trouble just because of the unsportsmanlike conduct penalties and backing them up 15 on stuff. But you've got Jakari Ransom that can be anywhere on the field. He is their dude. He said some stuff before he came up here, hashtag unstoppable, and got a great big stop sign when he rolled into Rams Stadium. So, the question is, can they get past Sayre? I think Sayre's got the goods. Obviously, they've got a head coach that knows a little bit about football. Chad Pennington kind of played at the NFL level and all the things that he did up there in Marshall and stuff. So I think that's going to be one of your better games in the second round, regardless of classifications across the entire state.
Yeah, I agree. Let's move up to 3A now and talk a little bit about our friends in Grayson. Spencer, you'll be up there for that East Carter game as they take on Lloyd Memorial. What are your early thoughts on that?
Well, Lloyd Memorial is a team that really likes to spread the field and use their athletes in space. East Carter, their whole coaching staff actually went up to Lloyd Memorial and watched their game with Fleming County, which I'm going to say one thing about that. Nothing taken away from Lloyd Memorial. They're a really, really good team. But Fleming County did lose the Johnson kid early in that game, did lose Trent early in that game. So that kind of played into why that score looks like that. East Carter, we watched them the last time we watched them. They turned the ball over 4 or 5 times against Martin County. You turn the ball over 4 or 5 times Friday night, you're going to watch everybody play the next Friday night. Lloyd Memorial is a team that You got to prevent the big plays. I mean, you want to talk about maybe the best game in this area. This is it. I mean, East Carter's going to have their hands full with this team. Lloyd Memorial is, they are living up to their nickname, the Juggernauts. So they are a team that only has one loss on the year, but it was a big one to Lexington Catholic. That's going to be a heck of a game. Do you want us to go ahead and pick it? Do you want me to go ahead and pick it, or you want me to hold on?
I want to hear it. I want to hear it.
I'm going to lean a little towards the Raiders, man. I've kind of just went with that Death Valley mentality all season long. East Carter's not an easy place to win at, especially when you're nice. You're used to playing on that nice, beautiful carpet. You're used to having locker rooms with all this luxury stuff. Now you're going to come to East Carter, and you're probably not going to go to the locker room at halftime because it's too far of a walk. So I lean towards East Carter. I think that Johnson and makes plays downfield with his arm, and I think that the defense has really come on lately. Give me East Carter, but I think it's a close one. But if East Carter wasn't to win, let's say they don't win, go look at the turnover differential. That'll tell you why they lost the game at.
Two names I think you call a lot in this football game as those two running backs that the Juggernauts have in the backfield. Yuri Collins-Comer and Isaiah Sebastian. They've combined for over 1,700 yards this year and 23 of their 40 rushing touchdowns. It's kind of a Jekyll and Hyde, if you will. They can roll one out. They can turn around and roll another one. They've only thrown it for 500 yards this season, but Sebastian is a guy that can also throw it as well. So it'll be interesting to see how this thing plays out. I'm going to go opposite. I'm going the Juggernauts. I think they win this one by double digits.
Ooh. Oh, just remember, that is James Collier that said that. I did not say it. James Collier said
I'm
that.
sure it'll be on a bulletin board somewhere.
There's
Twitter
right there.
There's several people out there that have my information. If you can't find it, it's always out there available.
After the Boyd County game, I picked Boyd County to win that game. And I got a lot of East Carter fans going, and they weren't, they're teasing because they know that I'm a pro East Carter guy. So, and then, Tim Champlin said, man, in the pregame speech, I said, even Spencer Hutchison picked Boyd County and he loves the Raiders. And I said, you're going to have to coach next week because I'm picking East Carter. So, I just, maybe I should pick against them. Because then it'd be like a defeat of Boyd County.
Yeah, a little motivation.
No, I'm not doing it. I think Isaac Messer and that defense, and I think, you talked about the running backs they got, James, 1,700 yards in between them, but do they have anybody that can guard Mikey Hall or Gabe Roberts? That's kind of been the backbone. Mikey Hall got a huge catch against Russell on 4th and 14 to save that game for the Raiders. We've seen it. It's kind of a record on repeat. When East Carter needs to put a drive together, they do it. Do they do it again this week? We're gonna find out.
The question is, you look at these two. I think when you look at the comparable game there with Fleming County being the common opponent, Fleming County got 55 hung on them. Okay, East Carter I think only scored 20. So they've got the dudes to do it. I think one of the things you talked about there, Isaac Messer and that defensive line, they can't allow these guys to get north and south.
No,
they've got to keep them hemmed up, keep them going east and west. If they get them north and south, if they get a big gap that they bust, it's going to the house. So I think that's the big thing here. The big thing is, though, the Raiders in years past, maybe if they fell behind by a couple of scores, probably wasn't equipped to make those type of runs. I think this year they are. Quentin Johnson, Mikey Hall, Gabe Roberts, you've got those opportunities. So if you fall behind 10 points early on, you don't have to panic. You can still execute your offense because you've got Landon Yoke. But you've got Foul in the backfield, but because of those dudes you got on the outside, and you got a quarterback that's not afraid to go downfield, and he's done it in some big opportunities. So I think that gives them that opportunity that if they do fall behind, they're not completely gone.
And another thing is they're kind of like Raceland, man. They've had 2 weeks to sit and think about it. So it's one of those things where does the time off hurt you or does it help you? We're going to find out. So I lean towards it hurts you a little bit. I hate to say that, but not being able to suit up on Friday night, regardless of who you're playing, I think it hurts you a little bit.
It gets you, especially get you out of that flow of everything that you've been doing.
Especially a team like East Carter who's won 6 in a row. So I just, to put an example behind it, I remember when the Big Ten didn't have a national or a Big Ten title game, and Ohio State would finish the regular season 12-0. Well, all these other conferences had, like the SEC, they would have conference championship games, and Ohio State would come in sometimes and hadn't played in over a month and get their rear end whipped because where they've been sitting for so long in Florida or LSU or whoever they were playing, they just played a couple of weeks ago. So it's just one of those things,
And now, just to throw a little shade at Ohio State, now they go to the conference title and destroy Iowa. So, I mean, does it really help?
They need to do something about the East and West, or I think there's like divisions are called like Legends and Leaders.
Legends and Leaders.
Yeah, Legends and Leaders. So they need to do something about that.
Well, guys, before we close out, any other games you want to talk about? You want to rant about the RPI? Anything else you guys want to say?
If you're an East Carter fan, this is one quick thing. If you're an East Carter fan, pay attention to Rock Castle and Bell County. Let's just say hypothetically East Carter wins, okay, and Russell loses. See, Russell would be the lowest RPI team if they were to go to Lexington Catholic and win. Highly unlikely. So if let's say East Carter makes it through this round, you're going to be the lowest RPI team probably, or it's something like that. So you're most likely looking at a trip to Rock Castle, which is 2.5 hours, or you're looking at a trip to Bell County, which is 3.5 hours. James, if I go to Bell County, I might as well just go on the Pigeon Forge and spend the night.
Well, yeah, that sounds like something you'd like to do. Probably go down there and hang out in Dollywood or something and put a feather in your cap and walk around with a cane or something. But
with my sunglasses on.
Absolutely, with your sunglasses on. RPI, I've put some numbers together. I went through last year's playoffs and looked at the numbers. I've already compared this first round of this year. 85% of the first round games in Class A were running clocks. Okay. Across all 6 classifications, 63% first round games were running clocks. Now, I've heard a lot of people talk about this. They said, well, let's get rid of the 4 seed, have the 2 and 3 seed play, and then the 1 seed gets a bye. I'm still not convinced that's the way to go. I don't even know that just going down to your top 2 and leaving it like it is. I'm a proponent. I think it's time that we look at our districts and say, do we need to have 8 districts? Can we not lump some of these districts together and make 4 districts? You play 4 teams out of your district. You play a 5th team out of your classification. That's 5 of your 10 games. Now go 5 games that you can play in any classification, anybody you want to, and line it up and go play. And then at the end of the season, you put your top 16 teams in a postseason. You rank them 1 through 16, and you roll it out there and let's go. And enough of this nonsense of all this, and here's the thing. If you're going to leave the district tournament or the district champion around, and, when we get out of round 2, we start reclassifying and putting people in different orders and stuff like that. Well, if you're going to leave it this way, at least say this. If you run into a team in the 3rd round that you have beaten heads up, or they were a district member of you and you've beaten them heads up and you won your district, then I don't care what the RPI says. You deserve to get that game back at home. You shouldn't have to go play somebody who you've beaten in your district. You won the district championship over. It shouldn't happen. So, that may be a quick fix to the RPI of some of the conversation we got. But at the same time, we're shelling out thousands of dollars of travel expenses, getting these teams back and forth for teams that, again, 63% running clock games. I think we had 5 forfeits in the first round because of teams that just bowed out and said they're not playing anymore for whatever reason that may be.
So just for clarification, James, you're against the RPI.
I'm not 100% against it, but I think there's got to be some serious tweaks to it because there's something that is not lining up here. But on the backside of it is, I think that we also have to look at the fact that the playoffs are way too watered down. There's too many teams involved. And if you cut it down to 16, then I think your RPI takes care of itself.
What about this? And just as me, just off the top of my head, why don't you just go back to 4 classes and go back to 4 classes and put all the private schools in their own class? How about that?
You know why it would happen? Because then somebody said, well, let's go mess with basketball.
Yep.
Well,
we're not going to discuss that. I got slandered last year. So,
if I'm not mistaken, most football teams pay for the basketball's bills, don't they?
I don't know. I don't do the financials.
Oh man,
well, in college it does anyways. In college, it does anyways.
For sure.
Yeah. Now, of course, bigger schools like Boyd County, Ashland, they probably, those gyms are usually filled every single game they play. But and this is a conversation I had with a coach in this area. I'm not going to name this coach, and I'm going to say it, and it's going to get some negative impacts. It is what it is. I'm very against private schools being able to compete against public schools. Very against it. You can pick and choose who you allow in your school. You can move things around, and you manipulate the system. And
you're playing on a different set of rules.
You are, and I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that it's. I'm just against it. I think that if you want to be a private school and you want to play sports, you should have to play in your own class. I mean, your own. All private schools should have to play each other. That's just what I think. So. There's a lot of different, parts moving around that. People are going to say, well, that's not the way it is in basketball. Well, this ain't basketball. And another thing is it's not even close to basketball. Okay, hypothetically, let's say Lexington Catholic and Cal play in the state championship in 3A, which, let's be honest, that's going to be your two favorites in the playoffs. Why is that? Is it because their education is so good? I'm not saying it's not great, but why is that? Why are two private schools playing in the state championship? So
a lot of schools don't do that, or a lot of states don't do that. I know Texas, they had them separated, and I thought that was interesting. Private school ball really wasn't that big down there. A lot of the power schools. Louisville update.
Louisville won.
Oh yeah, there you go, Ben.
Louisville won.
Let's go.
Trailed the whole game. And comes back and wins.
Comeback coach of the year, Kenny Payne. Let's go.
Hey, right here, you're hearing it first. Louisville under 5 wins this year.
Ooh. Now, I will say this. I'm going to brag a little bit on UMBC. That's the only 16 seed, I believe, still to beat a 1 seed in the tournament. They defeated Virginia.
Was Purdue a 1 last year?
So. Did Purdue lose to a 16 last year?
Fairleigh Dickinson?
Yeah, they did.
I thought that was a 5th. I thought they were a 2, but maybe
no. That was because we had back-to-back seasons, one in 16.
Well,
yeah, they were 16.
Because who was it? Was it Virginia that lost to UMBC?
Yeah, and they didn't just they didn't lose; they got whipped.
Yes.
So
let's leave it up to a Kentucky football playoff show to start talking about March Madness.
Well, listen, it is, basketball season is amongst us, okay?
Yeah.
We're only a couple of weeks away from tip-off for the high school season. And, that's some of the things that you're going to look at this too, is some of these teams that's going to make these deep runs in the postseason. You've got guys that are on the basketball team. Mm-hmm. They're not going to be ready. And, and let's be truthful, even if a team plays into the semifinals and they get popped there, your basketball kids are still not going to be ready until mid-December.
Right. No, condition-wise, for sure.
Yeah, condition-wise, getting their basketball legs underneath them and getting their football legs out of them. Because you watch so many kids that come off the football field into basketball, they really struggle not staying in foul trouble because they've still got all that physical nature of the game of football still in them. And so, you've got a lot of transitions there, but high school basketball is not too far away, but after this week, I think this is when things really ratchet up. This is when things get serious. The number of running clock games start to go down. The games tighten up a little bit. You don't get so many blowouts. Average first score of the first round, by the way, across all 6 classifications, 46-11. Ooh. So that explains why you had 63% of your games in running clocks. Looking at the numbers from last year, it wasn't far away from it. 44-11 first round, 58% of first round games running clocks. So
real quick shout out to Martin County. Lost to Pike County Central the very first game of the year in the Pike County Bowl and roll them.
They rolled them
playoffs. Yeah,
I think I called that too. I said, this ain't going to be no 9-6 game. Martin County, the Cardinals, man, they took care of business in that one. So
I guess
big win for the Cardinals.
Yeah, I guess it's you can't even as bad as they beat them. You can't even say, well, it's hard to beat an opponent twice. Well, I don't know how you beat them the first time. No offense to Pike County Central, but when you get beat like that, something ain't right.
Yeah,
probably injuries, stuff like that. Kids got hurt, stuff.
That could have been.
Yeah, you just never know.
Well, guys, I enjoyed this. We'll be back next week, hopefully talking about some local teams that have advanced on to the third round, and address your hate mail to our X accounts or leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought of the show. For Spencer Hutchison, James Collier, I'm Ben Spicer. Hit that like button on the way out and turn the bell on so you get notified when we're live on Friday nights. Until next time, see you guys later.